Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cracking open one of the world's most foundational spiritual texts, the Bhagavad Gita. We want to address a question that feels intensely modern. How should we think about money, about ambition?
Exactly. Our source material today is a deep exploration of prosperity, wealth, which the Gita calls dhan, and the philosophy of ethical action, or karma. And just to be clear, we aren't here for a history lesson as such. We're trying to extract some, let's say, ancient philosophical code for modern living.
Okay, and if you, like maybe many people listening, thought this text was just a strict rejection of material life, like give up everything, become an ascetic, well, prepare for a bit of a paradigm shift. The immediate surprise here, I think, is that the Gita doesn't condemn wealth acquisition.
Not at all. It's profoundly balanced, actually. The Gita recognizes that wealth is, well, it's a necessary resource. You need it for a stable life, for fulfilling your duties. The core paradox it presents is really this. Getting wealth is acceptable, but, and this is a big but, it comes with a non-negotiable ethical mandate. And that mandate completely redefines its purpose.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that mandate then. The first step, and it sounds like the most crucial one, is setting the stage for ethical earning.
Absolutely foundational. The principle is clarity on the method. The objective, and importantly, the way you earn that wealth, it must align with righteousness, with moral conduct. They call it dharma-yukta.
Dharma-yukta, right.
So if the process of getting it involves causing harm or deceit or exploitation, then the wealth itself is tainted. Doesn't matter how much there is.
Okay, and this leads us straight into something really practical for, well, anyone with a job or a goal. Karma yoga. We hear this term thrown around, but our source material clarifies it beautifully, I thought. It's the philosophy of action. You perform your duties, your karma, with diligence. But here's the twist, right? You do it without attachment.
Asakti.
Asakti, yes, or craving, lobh, for the final result, the outcome, the phala.
And what's fascinating here is that the Gita isn't telling you to be passive or, lazy, not at all. It actually demands competence, hard work, but it separates the effort from the expectation. The teaching is to act with nishkamphav. That's desireless intention. It's a radical shift, really, from focusing on the reward, the outcome, to focusing purely on mastering the action itself.
But how is that even possible, practically speaking, today? I mean, we live in a world driven by outcomes, right? Performance reviews, quarterly earnings, stock options.
Yeah.
All these incentives are built entirely around attachment to the result. If I'm working really hard on a major project, how can I genuinely say, oh, I don't care about the result, and still perform well, still be motivated?
Right, and that's the core challenge to our modern premise. The Gita argues that focusing obsessively on the outcome actually diminishes the quality of the action, because it introduces anxiety, fear of failure, all that mental noise. If you're focused only on the process, perfecting your craft, doing your duty impeccably, ethically the argument is you achieve a higher quality of life, not just work.
Okay, so the spiritual payoff is actually a performance enhancer. Is that fair to say?
In a way, yes, precisely. If we connect this back, the internal reward for acting with this intentional detachment with nishkamphav is mental peace. It's sincere satisfaction, Satsantosh. And this satisfaction isn't dependent on whether the bonus arrives or the project wins an award. It's dependent on knowing you executed your duty with integrity and focus. The external result then becomes secondary. It might be a natural consequence of flawless action, maybe, but it's not the reason for the action.
That immediately reframes the whole modern grind, doesn't it? If success is defined more by that internal peace during the work rather than just the external metrics that are right after, the motivation, the stress levels, they could change entirely.
Yeah.
But inevitably, when resources flow, temptation follows. So if ethical earning is step one, we have to look at the dangers wealth introduces. And the Gita is very, very explicit about the risks here. This brings us to the destructive power of desire and greed.
Yeah, it uses extremely stark language. It identifies 3 destructive forces, calls them the gates of hell. It's a trio that guarantees sorrow for the soul if you let them take over. They are desire, calm, anger, krodh, and greed, lobh. Avoiding these 3 is presented as absolutely essential for your spiritual well-being, but also just your mental well-being day to day.
Okay, wow. Gates of hell. And of those 3, greed, lobh seems the most maybe insidious when we're talking about financial matters, because it often disguises itself, doesn't it, as ambition or prudence or just getting ahead. What exactly does the Gita say about its specific impact, greed itself?
It's unequivocally described as destructive, Vinashkarak. The text warns that allowing this force, greed, to take root inevitably makes human life sorrowful. Dukme, the implication is crystal clear. Even if you achieve maximum financial success, stacks of money, if it was driven by greed, you've basically guaranteed your own unhappiness.
This raises that critical boundary question then. Let's say I acquire wealth ethically. I'm not stealing. I provide a good service. People pay me. Fine. But I want to acquire more of it. When does that healthy ambition cross the line into destructive greed, into lob? Where's the edge?
That's a great question. The distinction seems to lie in the internal transformation. It's the point where the resource, the money, shifts from being a tool you use into becoming your master. We have to avoid allowing wealth, which is just an external thing, to transform into that destructive internal state of intense, suffocating attachment that's known as mo.
Okay.
The money itself is neutral, right? But the craving for it, the constant fear of losing it, or maybe the envy you feel looking at others who have more, that is the danger. That's what poisons your ability to achieve that real satisfaction, that satya santosh.
That's a powerful and really crucial distinction. It's not about the size of your bank account necessarily. It's the size of your emotional attachment to it and how much mental real estate that portfolio demands from you.
Okay.
So if we manage that internal discipline, that brings us to the next logical step. Once we have this resource, ethically earned, managed without attachment, how should we actually use it?
Right. And this brings us to the social mandate for wealth utilization. It's not just for you. The Gita outlines pretty clearly that wealth should be used for service, seva, for maintaining righteousness, dharma, and critically, for the welfare of society, samaj ka hit. The successful individual isn't just supposed to hoard it. They're expected to use their resources to maintain the social fabric, help the needy, contribute positively.
So the wealth itself is meant to be like a circulating resource, something that supports the community, not just a stagnant pool for personal luxury. And this provides context for that severe warning against exploitation that our sources detail, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The text warns fiercely that earning wealth by causing distress or pain or poverty to others. It's explicitly labeled a sin, pap. And it goes further. It states that this type of action leads to the destruction of the soul, atma kavinash.
Wow. That's not just a legal warning or an economic one. That's deep spiritual accountability. When you think about modern practices, maybe exploitative labor, predatory lending, certain corporate actions that damage the environment for profit, the Gita seems to view these not just as bad business, but as acts that literally poison the perpetrator's own spiritual future.
Exactly. The source material presents wealth earned at the expense of others as being fundamentally toxic to the self. It's a destructive force that degrades the very individual who's accumulating it. It really means reassessing the whole purpose of financial success. If the acquisition process harms your internal peace or harms the welfare of society, then you fundamentally misuse the resource. Doesn't matter how legal the process might have been on paper.
Okay, this changes the entire conversation from how much can I get to something more like how well can I serve with what I have.
Right.
Which brings us, I think, to the final piece of this puzzle. Once we realize money is a resource and duty is paramount, what's the real goal? What does the Gita actually define as true, unpurchasable prosperity?
Yeah. The philosophy introduces this beautiful kind of qualitative balance sheet. True wealth, the kind money simply cannot buy. It includes assets like a devoted father and family, Pita Parivar, strong ethics, Naitikta, genuine love, Prem, and, importantly, the ongoing development of the soul, Atma Kavikas.
That is utterly countercultural today, isn't it? Our definitions of rich are almost exclusively monetary, net worth. The Gita is shifting the definition of success from something external and quantifiable to something internal, relational, qualitative. So if you have billions but no ethics, no family ties, no love, you're actually considered impoverished from this perspective.
Absolutely. Impoverished in the things that truly matter for the soul's journey. And this leads directly to the Gita's teaching on balance. It meticulously avoids extremes. It warns against both the constant frantic accumulation of desires, you could call it hyper-consumerism, and the opposite extreme, getting excessively entangled in severe asceticism or, self-inflicted penance, tapasya.
So you don't have to quit your job and move to a cave.
No.
But you also can't make your job and your bank balance your entire identity either.
Yeah.
The goal seems to be this grounded stability within reality, focusing on your duty, your ethical conduct.
Precisely. The philosophy grounds the individual in reality. The summary of purpose that comes through in our sources is really that money is a resource. It's a tool, but it is absolutely not the ultimate goal of life. True prosperity is realized through that inner satisfaction, satya santosh, through ethical conduct, dharma, and going right back to our first point, through desireless action, nishkampav. These non-monetary assets, family, love, ethics, peace. They are the true markers of a genuinely rich life. They are what you're left with when the external resources inevitably fluctuate or fail.
That has been a really fascinating deep dive. We've looked into a text often misunderstood, I think, as purely otherworldly or just historical. We've covered the ethical mandate for earning, the spiritual discipline needed for desireless action, the sheer destructive nature of unchecked greed, and finally, this ultimate redefinition of true prosperity that values family and ethics way above currency.
Yeah, the Gita provides a surprisingly clear map, even for the modern host in navigating work and life. Perform your duty with excellence and detachment. Ensure your method of earning benefits or at least doesn't harm society. And understand really deeply that the most valuable things in life are the very things you cannot possibly purchase. It forces us to ask some pretty tough questions about our own intentions, doesn't it?
It really does. And as you, listening, reflect on these ancient principles and maybe your own approach to work and finance, here's a final provocative thought drawn directly from the source material we discussed. If the Gita teaches that true wealth includes these unpurchasable assets, family, love, ethics, inner peace, how does our current, largely economic measure of success even account for these things? By overwhelmingly focusing on quantifiable wealth, are we, perhaps inadvertently, prioritizing the very path that the Gita warns leads to sorrow, the path driven by spiritual greed, love, and moh, over the path that leads to lasting satisfaction, satya santosh? Something to think about as you navigate your own karma this week.